Hello, in this video, I'm going to talk about my 5-part paradigm for how to lower stress. Stay tuned. Welcome to Wellness with John. I'm John Peters, and these are resources to help you thrive. So in today's video, I want to talk about my 5-part holistic paradigm for approaching stress reduction because it's helpful for understanding how your therapist might be generally approaching supporting you in lowering your stress and anxiety. And I think it also is a good framework for implementing in your own life with your own self-help program as you work with ways to lower your stress, lower your anxiety, and cope more effectively. And I think it's important also to understand a comprehensive paradigm because it's going to address all the different ways that you need to lower your stress. Because if you do some of it, but you neglect other parts, then you might not have an optimal stress reduction set of strategies in your life. If you implement a more comprehensive approach, you're going to get better results, right? But let me pause for a second and just say that if you like this kind of content, hit the like button below. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed. And I want to tell you about one other offer before I continue with this video. I have a 2-week online course to lower stress. If you want to find out more information about that, click the link in the description. But it's a 2-week course to teach you easy to learn, easy to practice techniques that quickly lower your stress. And they're the types of things that will produce lasting results as well. And that course follows the paradigm that I'm explaining in this video as well. It's a holistic, comprehensive course. But the good news is that I've taught these techniques to thousands of people at this point. So I'm absolutely confident that they're going to lower your stress. And it's 100% guaranteed because I'm so confident it'll work. If you take the course and it doesn't lower your stress within 2 weeks, I'll just give you a full refund. I'm that confident about it. So check the link in the description below for information about the Stress Reduction Mastery course. So back to this video. So here's my 5-part paradigm for approaching stress reduction, right? And I've used this with thousands of clients. I also used to teach a full semester stress reduction course at Indiana University and did for 15 years, taught that to thousands of students. And this was something that we covered on day 1 in the course. And so here's how it goes. Number 1, change something in your environment. Number 2, change your thinking. Number 3, change your capacity to cope with specific stressors. Number 4, implement effective wellness techniques. And number 5, you're going to increase your fitness, your brain fitness, your stress reduction fitness, your frustration tolerance, so that you generally can perform better in stressful situations. So let me talk about each one of those in turn. Number 1 is change something in your external environment. And sometimes people are either too focused on this or not focused enough. This is one that I find that people are kind of skewed about. And what I mean by this is that sometimes there is something external in our world that if it changes, our overall stress load is going to improve, right? So a couple of my students one semester were snickering when I was introducing this topic, and then they explained that the semester before they'd had a roommate from hell. They tried to work with it in lots of different ways, but the situation was very stressful for everybody. And eventually they solved the situation by kicking their roommate out, right? So they changed something in their external world so that their stress load was less, right? Or I've talked to a variety of older patients over the years where they are socially isolated. And one of the main reasons is that they don't have transportation. And when they find a way to establish reliable transportation so that they can get out and get to places, their stress level improves significantly, right? So it's changing something in the external world. Now, the pitfall with this is that sometimes people have what we call a skewed locus of control, where they're either blaming someone or blaming the universe for their troubles and not appropriately looking for the place where they have some agency to make some change. Or they're just being passive and hoping the external world will change. Or maybe they have an internal attitude problem, which we're going to get to in the next element, and they're not dealing with it in themselves, but they're just wanting everyone else to change, right? So sometimes we can have a skewed locus of control and want the external world to change when really we need to do some work within ourselves, in our own head, in our own life, in order to have a lower stress load. But this is an aspect that we don't want to neglect. And a lot of times I think when people go to therapy, they think, well, therapy is about my mind and it's about me and what goes on inside of me, which it is in large part. But the reality is that you and I live in a real world. We live in real houses. We have real money. We have real cars. We do things with other people who are not us. There are things outside of ourselves. And sometimes working with what we can affect in terms of positive change in the external environment is an integral element to lowering your overall stress load. So that's something to consider. Element number 2 in my formula is changing one's cognition. So this is the thing people often first think about when they think about self-help programs, when they think about going to therapy, is I want to change my thinking about something. And this is a very powerful modality, and it's why we therapists do work in cognitive approaches. My 2 main approaches are acceptance and commitment therapy and dialectical behavioral therapy. And both of those are considered cognitive approaches to a large extent. And part of what this means is that we change how we're thinking about things. We examine the thoughts in our heads when we're coping with challenges. And we try to come up with optimal ways of thinking about things or having attitudes about stressors or maybe how we frame something, because how we think about things has a big impact on how we experience and react to challenges. And sometimes it's very important to examine our thoughts, examine our mental frames of a stressor in order to come up with more opportunities to affect positive change both within ourselves and in actual situations that we're dealing with, right? So examining cognitions, examining our thinking, examining our attitudes and how we're framing things, and potentially reworking that so that we perform more effectively. Element number 3 has to do with increasing our capacity to cope with particular stressors. A common one that is a good example for this is when people work on their communication skills and their negotiation skills. A lot of times people come to therapy and a big source of stress is relationships that they have with a partner, with a roommate, with a family member, with a neighbor, with a coworker. And so one important factor for how they experience those stressors and how they perform and work with them constructively is their ability to communicate well, or their ability to examine how they're dealing with the conflict, right? And there are actual skills as they relate to different domains of functioning in our lives, including communication and conflict resolution and lots of other aspects of our lives. So sometimes what we therapists do is we support people in increasing their actual skill level when they're dealing with specific types of stressors that require those skills, right? So if you're having a lot of interpersonal stress, it might be worth thinking about, can I get better at communicating? Can I get better at how I deal with conflict, right? So if you increase your skills, you're going to perform better, right? And so sometimes a good way to approach that is to look at what are the common recurring stressors in your life, and then think carefully either in yourself or through reading self-help books or in talking with a therapist or a mentor, someone maybe more skilled and mature than you are, and figure out, are there ways that I could be more skilled in dealing with this particular type of challenge? So increasing your skill level is another domain of approach that we sometimes use in lowering a person's overall stress load. The 4th component is increasing your general wellness, because the general stress equation is stress coming in, how we cope with it, and how we get rid of it in terms of the stress load. And so there are a lot of wellness activities that have a significant impact in helping a person not load up too much with stress. Good examples of that would be getting good sleep, not drinking too much alcohol and caffeine, regular exercise, having rewarding social connections and good social support, um, being involved with meaningful activities like hobbies or spiritual practice. And so there are a lot of things that we call general wellness techniques because they have a generalized effect, and they're things that we do in general, not necessarily to cope with a specific challenge, but because they are good to have as features of our lifestyle so that they function to help us lower our stress. This is also an area to examine when you're feeling more stress. One of the questions I often ask people is, what has worked for you in the past as a general wellness technique, and are you doing it now? Because sometimes people get busy, for example, or they have like an injury and they stop exercising, and the exercise was an effective general wellness strategy for them. It was really helping them keep their stress load lower, but it went out the window for some reason, because they're busy, or they couldn't work out because they hurt their ankle or something like that. So when those general wellness things are absent in our life, our stress load is going to be higher. That's just the way it works. And when we haven't implemented them appropriately, in a feasible way, given the available time and energy we have and resources, they're not going to help us, right? So this is a domain that's important to explore, which is, what are the things that I can generally do to generally keep my stress level lower? What are the things I know that work for me, or the things that I might be open to experimenting with to see if they could work for me, so that I could implement them for myself in a feasible way. The last element, the fifth element, is something that I think is neglected in psychology in general. It's neglected in therapy, but it's something that I've found is a very important aspect of the paradigm to address with my patients and my students, and that is increasing your brain fitness. And this is different from increasing your skills that I talked about a minute ago. Because let's say that I'm having interpersonal stress with another person, and I increase my skills by becoming a better communicator and better at navigating the conflict. I may still be limited in my ability to perform in the specific moments where I'm challenged by that stressor if I'm not fit, right? So if you think about this as akin to physical exercise, if you're wanting to perform physically, you sometimes need to get more fit in order to perform better. So if you're going to go run a marathon, you're going to have to actually train to increase the strength and flexibility of your body and increase your cardiovascular fitness. If you just read a good book about the skill of running a marathon and then go sign yourself up and show up and run, you probably won't perform as well as if you read the book about the skills and then actually trained to increase your fitness. And there are certain types of brain fitness that have a significant impact on how we perform when we are in stressful moments. And this is a big part of what I teach when I work with my clients. And it's a big part of the course that I mentioned. The link is in the description below that you can check out. But if we don't increase our brain fitness, then we get a suboptimal performance in the moments where we're most challenged. Because the reality is, when we go up to code orange, code red, our brain changes and we just don't tend to perform as well as when we're at code green or maybe code yellow. And so if we increase our brain fitness, what it means is we stay down at code green and yellow more of the time, even when we're facing a significant challenge, and thus we perform better, right? So we have better brain fitness, and you can get brain fitness through particular strategies. My favorite one, if you want to know, for improving brain fitness is mindful breathing. And that is a core practice in the 2-week course that I mentioned, Stress Reduction Mastery. And it's also something that I promote on this channel quite a lot. I work in the mindfulness-based cognitive mode with my clients quite a lot of the time. And if you want to check out a video about how to practice mindfulness, I'll put a link up here at the top if you want to go check that one out now. So I just wanted to share this general paradigm of a holistic approach to stress reduction, because It's what informs me in my general approach to clients and how to help them lower their stress. I think it's helpful potentially for you in thinking about how you're going to approach your own self-help of lowering your stress. And as I said, one of the main points I want you to take away from this video is that you don't want to neglect any of the five. If you do 1, 2, 3, or 4 and neglect a fifth element of this holistic paradigm, you're going to get a suboptimal result. So to get an optimal stress reduction result in general, you need to address all 5 of those elements appropriately given whatever it is that you're dealing with there. So thanks for joining me in this video today. And stay tuned with the channel. If you have yet to like the video, do that, please. And if you have yet to subscribe, I'd love to have you as a subscriber of the channel. And I'll see you in the next video.